Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Future-Proofing Your Snack Portfolio, 3 Trends Shaping Product Innovation. I'm Amy Pachunas, Key Account Business Development Leader for Edlong Flavor Solutions. Snacking has experienced a major transformation in recent years. The view of eat your 3 meals a day has changed. What was once seen as a treat or quick pick-me-up has become a central part of our daily routine. With busier lifestyles and changing meal patterns, snacks are no longer just a fun addition. They've become a key element of our overall nutrition. Snacks make up more than half of all of our eating occasions. Today's consumers are seeking options that are not only convenient and tasty, but also nutritious. According to Hartman, 62% of all snacking occasions reflect the needs for nourishment, focusing on functional benefits and long-term well-being. For food manufacturers, understanding consumer needs and adapting to them is essential for remaining competitive in an already competitive space. The changing wellness landscape is pushing manufacturers to create food and beverages that address 3 emerging consumer trends: women's nutritional health, healthy aging, and GLP-1 supported management. Today, we'll dive into these 3 trends shaping the future of healthy snacking and explore how food manufacturers can stay ahead of the curve. Before we begin, just a few household items. The slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button located in the top right corner of your presentation window. If you need any technical assistance, click on the Help widget located on the bottom left corner of your browser. You will also see a related content widget where you can download an infographic highlighting some of the key stats we'll be sharing today, and of course, the presentation. Finally, we encourage you to submit any questions at any time using the Q&A button at the bottom of your browser. We will try to answer as many questions as possible during the session. If we run out of time, don't worry, we'll email you a response. So let's go ahead and get started. To begin, I'd like to invite my colleagues to introduce themselves. Bernd, can you share a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you, Amy. And hello, everyone. My name is Bernd Köhler. I'm the VP of Global R&D at Edlong. I'm originally from Germany, but based in Chicago, have a background in food chemistry and more than 20 years of international experience in the food industry, previously working for Mars Wrigley and McCain Foods. And at Edlong, I'm very fortunate to work with a very talented team of scientists and flavorists who are developing new dairy and dairy type flavors for all kinds of different food applications. And we not only have great tasting characterizing flavors for cheeses, creams, milks, yogurts, and other dairy products, but we also dive deep into the complexity of dairy to deliver certain functionalities that can help solve some of the toughest flavor challenges in the food industry. So we are not only helping our customers to make their products taste great, we are also investing in research how our flavors can be used to deliver specific functionalities like enhanced sweetness or saltiness perception, mouthfeel, mouth-watering, or masking of flavor off notes. Emily, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Sheehan. I'm an R&D manager in the area of applications with Edlong. And we're based here in Cork in the south of Ireland. So we're based on Teagasc and MTL site. So it gives us a lot of access to analytical and processing capabilities. I'm a food scientist myself, and my specialities kind of lie in the plant-based side of things, so alternative dairy and seasonings, also sports nutrition, but we do look at a range of applications here in North America, Mexico, and in Ireland. But yes, we have a great team here. We're we love collaborating. We're interested in looking at flavor solutions, based on trends. So yeah, if you guys want to get in contact with us afterwards, please do, and I'd love to discuss kind of any flavor profiles that you'd be looking forward.
Thanks, Emily and Bernd. It's clear that we're living in a world of snackers. Today, snacking isn't just about satisfying hunger or a quick bite. It's become an integral part of our eating habits, just like meals. As a result, we expect our snacks to offer more than just great taste. So that could mean seeking out options with higher protein, added fiber, benefits for gut health. We would love to hear more from Emily and Bernd. Bernd, what are you hearing in the industry?
Yes, Amy. So I certainly agree that snacking is a significant opportunity in the food industry. And that's because of the busy lifestyles of many consumers. Snacking occasions are often on the go, where many consumers don't really have access to kitchen equipment to prepare a whole meal by themselves. And interestingly, we looked at some data on the internet. Users polled by Kantar profiles and Mintel, 25 of them are saying that several snacks can be just as good as a meal. So what this means is that brands need to prioritize foods that are convenient to eat without any major prep work, but also have the nutrients to support the dietary needs of consumers. And also, depending on the occasion, consumers may be looking to supplement their diet or aiming for specific functional benefits, such as supporting their healthy immune system, hydration, digestive health, or improved cognitive performance. So there's a lot of options out there. What we also see is that consumers are more interested in recognizable ingredients in their snacks, ingredients that consumers recognize from their kitchen cupboard, right? That they know. And the underlying need for this sentiment is that consumers really want to be familiar and comfortable about what they're eating. And there is a worry, that if a snack is perceived as too healthy, it might not taste good. In fact, 28% of internet users polled by Kantar profiles and Mintel expressed exactly that concern.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. On the go, familiar, tasty, and nutritious. It's all what we're looking for. And brands continue to innovate in this space to support consumer need states and eating occasions. Emily, how is the snacking industry evolving in Europe?
Yeah, for sure. Just like Bernd said there, in the EU and our region here, we're seeing a lot of that kind of move towards, convenience as well. So there's also, it's almost like a style now of eating rather than just being a companion to your regular meals like it used to be. So traditionally, snacks here would have been that kind of for pleasure, your HFSS type products. So like, what we would call crisps here or chips in the US, or, sweet applications that pretty much would have maybe high sugar, high fat. So there's a move towards, baked instead of fried, and also looking at some interesting kind of bases. So whether it's legumes, grains, we're even seeing things like seaweed come up in the market, and also looking at replacement of sugars for natural sugars, natural sweeteners, things like that. And when these types of ingredients come into play, and as well if you're adding additional protein or vitamins, you do sometimes have issues with taste or texture. So people are wanting a better eating experience, improved mouthfeel, masking. So we do have a range of solutions there. So we do have functional flavors that can help with those types of issues. So yeah, we also as well have kind of sweet flavors that can help on this. So it's well known, I think, in industry as well that vanilla type profiles can kind of help with this masking side of things. So we do have that range that can help in these scenarios as well. So I do think it's moving forward to that healthier lifestyle, more well-being than kind of, for pleasure. And like not even just traditional snacks, we're talking about meal replacement beverages, ready to mix, high protein, many things. I think even like, maybe your yogurts, your added probiotics, different types of ingredients, that's where snacking is going. I think there's room for both. So there's room for your traditional snacks, but also that new style of snacking that's in a much more healthy mindset.
Yes, absolutely, Emily. And I want to dive a little deeper into the subject because we really do see in our work, you mentioned it, that the additions of more protein, fiber, vitamins, minerals, or plant extracts to food sometimes come with taste challenges. And that's because these ingredients can have undesirable off notes. It can be earthy, green, astringent, or even cardboard in some cases. And that's exactly where flavors can make an important contribution. And the example that is shown here in the spider graph is how we were able to reduce negative and promote positive flavor attributes in this case, a rice milk beverage that is fortified with plant-based pea protein. So what the team did here is combining a masking flavor with a sweet spot flavor, and we were able to successfully reduce the intensity, you see it circled here, of unwanted grainy, earthy vegetable and cardboard notes. We also reduced bitterness and increased sweetness to provide more balance in the beverage. And we increased desirable positive attributes. You see them circled here as well. So like milk, cream, butter, vanilla, and brown sugar notes. And I'm sure that the product developers and data geeks who are listening in today will appreciate that our sensory data is based on high statistical confidence at the 95 and even 99% confidence level.
This is a great example, Bern. Thank you. It's key to develop food and beverage products that keep the full taste experience in mind, including bringing forward great tasting flavors and masking those off notes that can be attributed to functional ingredients. Let's dive into health trends and review how CPG companies are adapting to the evolving consumer need states. Brands are leaning into closing the women's health gap with ingredients to support gut health, increased energy, or hormonal balance. CPG brands are even collaborating with influencers to capture broader audiences, and startups are entering the snacking world with women's health top of mind. Brands are focusing on the functional benefits in their formulations and ensuring those benefits are clearly communicated to their consumers. Consumers truly want personalized nutrition. Emily, can you tell us a little bit about how consumer needs impact innovation?
Yeah, so I think like when we're talking about this topic and women's health, it's something that's really cropped up in the last year or so. We're seeing a lot about it in social media. So therefore we've got consumers talking about it. And then once consumers really are talking about these things, we have, brands and the industry reacting. So I would say personalized nutrition, is it based on gender? Is it based on age? Like, is it, a woman at a young age? Is it a woman that's, maybe premenopausal? There's all these questions, like what is it that we're actually trying to achieve? But in general, like you said, there's women that really, of all ages, are looking for focus, gut health, improved, muscle gain, cognitive. People are kind of adding functional ingredients such as things like mushrooms to developments as well, kind of to support these types of things like cognition. So when we talk about all of these functional type of ingredients or the functions of these ingredients, protein is always kind of number one topic that comes up too, whether that's in kind of is it in a potato chip or is it in a beverage? And for instance, if you're going to use that in a beverage and it's going to be a beverage that's heated rather than a ready to mix, you have to look at the type of protein that you're going to use, for instance. We can't use all proteins in those scenarios, and you do come up with issues like viscosity, sedimentation, when you start incorporating ingredients. So I suppose as a flavor house, we've done a lot of work with other ingredient suppliers to really understand these types of challenges when you start adding ingredients into developments and how these challenges will arise and what flavors or R&D support can do to help you. So along with flavors, we do also offer that support in terms of solving challenges in production, or benchtop. So when it comes to this, I'll talk a little bit about the ingredients that people are adding. So, they're adding, like I said, caffeine for energy, protein. You've got your nootropics, your adaptogens, lots of different ingredients like fiber to support gut health. So just leaning into that a little bit in terms of talking about the nootropics and the adaptogens. We did produce a demo, I think it was last year now, that we really kind of wanted to look at consumer trends and what was going on in the market. So we decided to produce a cold brew beverage, and with that we decided to add some functional ingredients. So we went to add L-theanine, which is an amino acid, with caffeine and the ashwagandha, just to kind of so what it does is that in that ratio that it was added, that you get those benefits of kind of that energy, but without the jitters and the crash. So we really wanted to showcase what our flavors could do here in terms of profile. So, you know, dessert and nostalgia is really, really big as well in all different categories in the market. So we said, you know, tiramisu is something that we could is really deconstruct. So we added those coffee notes with actual coffee, but then along with that, you're like, what are these other flavors that make up that tiramisu type profile? So we're talking about the, you know, the creamy mascarpone, the chocolatey notes that you would get from the dusting on top of a tiramisu. So we had a combination of flavors there that were heat stable, vegan suitable, and helped to mask those functional ingredients. So I just think that's a really interesting example of the types of things you can do. But we've also looked at snack type products that would have, you know, lentils in them and kind of mouthfeel there and masking. So there's a whole scenario of things you can do with flavors when it comes to these kind of healthier snacks. And for us, it's really just a matter of getting in contact, and we can help you guys out in terms of what you're trying to do. Another example that comes to mind as well, like I know I spoke about it briefly there a couple of minutes ago, is that alternative dairy. So there are scenarios where people want to incorporate more protein from dairy or an alternative dairy product. So basically, we have done some work with products that would have incorporated probiotics that would have a plant-based source, and they're on the market, but we would have improved the mouthfeel and added cultured notes back in as well. So these are the kind of things that you can do and the kind of snacking categories I see in the future. So
I'm always on the lookout for snacks, whether that be food or beverage that fit my needs, particularly while I'm traveling. I need on-the-go nutritious products that are giving me energy and keep me full. Thanks for sharing, Emily. Another key trend is healthy aging. Aging is getting a makeover as people of all ages consider lifespan over health span. As consumers aim for healthier aging, their diets are a key tool. Consumers are seeking ingredients that support cognitive function, bone health, and immune health.
So for sure, when we're talking about those types of functions people want, so like, you know, when do you start aging? You start aging when you're born, really. So like, I think everything is about the healthy living kind of from day one. And I suppose, again, we just talked about a personalized nutrition, but is it for a specific demographic, and is it for the older generation? Is it for the Gen Zs? Are we talking about different flavor profiles versus different, you know, functions for these age groups? So I would say, like, there's definitely a focus on like the science and the nutrition in some of the ingredients for these things. I'm going to give an example, I think, on dairy versus plant-based. So there's always a discussion around the PDCAS, which is the actual evaluation of amino acids in a plant-based protein. So talking about the nutritional quality and the digestibility. So for instance, soy is the most comparable to dairy. And with that, you know, people like to use it, but then you have that soy allergen flag. So then people move towards that kind of blend of pea and rice that could give a kind of similar type amino acid complex. But also people are constantly innovating and looking at things like chickpea and fava, and whether, again, that's in a beverage, a snack, a confectionery, whatever it might be. These all pose different taste challenges, and, you know, whether it's mouthfeel or you want to add sweet flavors to that. So those are things for sure you got to keep an eye on, is that changing of ingredients when we're talking about health. It's like, what are people using? What are people interested in? What are they adding? So I think overall with that, I'm like, I just like, there's that kind of what comes next for me is the profile, really, I suppose, is like, what are these demographics interested in? Like, as we get older, we lose that sense of taste. So people are looking for more rich depth of flavor and kind of, you know, richer taste. So whether that's umami or it's a dark chocolate versus a milk chocolate. We know the Gen Z is all into kind of, you know, fusion flavors and spicy and exotic profiles. And maybe, like, I know some of the older generation maybe too, but generally, you know, when we're segregating that out, we're kind of seeing that the younger for sure are more adventurous and open to trying different things. So it's understanding as well who we're developing for, and whether we're using ingredients that you can lean into and combine into the profile, or ingredients that, you know, maybe you just completely need that masking and that plain base to work on. So yeah.
Absolutely, Emily. And I really like the tiramisu flavored beverage. What a great combination, tiramisu and coffee, right? So that was an awesome demo. But also what you mentioned about consumer needs. I think that's where everything really should start. All food development needs to start with understanding consumer needs and showing empathy with what consumers are looking for, what problem are they trying to solve, and how can the diet support them on their journey. And what's also interesting here for me is that whether we're talking about functional foods to support women's health or healthy aging, the regulatory requirements and the technical challenges for food product developers are in fact very similar, right? So first, you always need to make sure that your product functional claims are very substantiated. What matters here is that how the ingredients interact with the human body, what functionalities they deliver. They must be bioavailable. You mentioned PDCAS. They must be absorbed by the body in an amount that actually delivers the physiological benefit that you want to claim on your product. And you want your product to taste great. This often means, I mentioned it earlier with the rice milk beverage, that you need to balance some inherent flavors that are in your base and sometimes overcome potential off notes that are coming from your functional ingredients. And not to forget that at the end, it's not only about masking and overcoming the negatives, but also deliver a positive flavor experience, add some wonderful characterizing flavors to deliver a positive eating experience that pair well, like the tiramisu example, with the functional ingredients that you have in your product. And one thing that really bothers me, sorry, but that I saw data again from the internet, from snack consumers, that 28% or almost 1/3 of them believe that if a snack is too healthy, it will not taste good. And that is exactly, I think, where our experts, our team can come along and help developers to make these products not only healthy, but also taste great. Our solutions can really make all the difference at the end. And I firmly believe personally that healthy doesn't need to equate necessarily to poor taste. It is our job as product developers, flavorists, application scientists, really to come together, work together, collaborate, and make the healthier food taste great. Or in other words, make the healthier choice the preferred choice.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, even talking about that, there's some really interesting flavor combinations that we've looked at before as well in this type of area. So we've even done some flavors for protein-packed vegan mac and cheese pots. We've done a healthy Nutella version that uses real nuts, and adding those cocoa type tastes on top of it. Lots of varieties of different types of beverages and sports nutrition, white chocolate, and you can add fruit notes in there as well. So white chocolate and raspberry, or white chocolate and hazelnut. There's some really interesting profiles that are out there, and we do have those kind of dairy notes to back up those types of profiles. So I think the innovation in the types of profiles that we could do for these types of categories are huge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I really think the options are endless here.
Mm-hmm.
And lastly, we'll go ahead and discuss the rise of GLP-1 medications and how it's creating innovative opportunities for brands. Side effects of using GLP-1 medications include altered taste and impact on appetite.
Yeah, so that is kind of ringing some bells in my head there as well about so in Ireland, basically the drug is generally used for diabetes medication. But also just recently this month, actually, there's a brand called Wegovy that's been released for weight loss as well. So it's definitely coming, loss of appetite and that lack of desire for food. So just on a first-hand kind of experience, really, my brother is diabetic himself, and he's on that drug. So he found he just doesn't really have an appetite anymore. He's not interested in foods that are high fat, high in fat, and high in sugar. He doesn't have the desire to even eat them. So he really is looking for nutritious food that he can eat and keep him in good health. But yeah, for sure, I can definitely see the effects that it has. And he would have been quite a big foodie as well, and interested in food similar to me. So for him to say that, I can definitely see that it has an impact. But I do think we'll see more development coming down the line here. We don't see as much of it in the EU as they do in the US, but I think kind of positioning your products for all environments, just to be healthy in general, or moving towards a more healthy focus, really can be very beneficial for lots of different consumers, not just your patients that are taking GLP-1 medications.
Yes, absolutely, Emily. And I've actually been reading and learning a lot about the impacts of anti-obesity medications, or the GLP-1 receptor agonists. I just spoke actually at last week at the American Food Innovate Summit in Atlanta about this topic. And I want to start with the reason, why these GLP-1 drugs even exist, and that is the effective treatment of diabetes. You mentioned your brother, Emily, on the one hand, and then also as a cure, as a potential intervention or effective intervention against obesity. And the global obesity epidemic is really a key driver of that consumer need. In fact, there's some really dire stats out there. The World Obesity Federation predicts that by 2035, a staggering number of 4 billion people, or more than half of the global population, will be either overweight or obese, with a body mass index of 25 or higher. And when you look at the stats here in the US, it's even worse. If there is no change, and there's hope that we'll be able to bend the curve, and if the current trend would continue, by 2035, 58% of all adults may be obese, with a body mass index of 30 or higher. And that would translate to a 2.1% annual increase in adult obesity. And what's even more concerning is that childhood obesity is expected to increase even faster, by 2.4% year over year. And as you can imagine, Amy, this is a significant challenge, not only because of the personal suffering of individuals who are impacted by obesity, but because of the wide range of impacts to public health, healthcare costs, reduced productivity, premature retirement, and premature death.
Mm-hmm. AOMs, or GLP-1 medications, are on the rise, and predicted annual growth rate is 40%. Bern, can you share more about the benefits of using GLP-1 medication and the side effects impacting consumers?
Yes, so I think, of course, the main benefit is that these medications actually do work. They do enable an effective treatment of obesity with significant weight loss. What has been published is between 15 to 20%. And this is because GLP-1 medications help maintain a healthy blood sugar level, so the glucose homeostasis, by triggering the insulin release from the pancreas. But they also affect areas of the brain that suppress appetite, which leads to reduced calorie intake. And that's the example, Emily, in your family, your brother is experiencing exactly this. And that's why these medications work. What's also important, I think, from a general perspective, they enable a different view on obesity as a chronic disease. So moving away from the perception of obesity, being, from blame or alleged lack of self-control, to a treatable chronic disease. So there's some medication out there, some help. Some of the challenges, however, that are associated with GLP-1 include the risk of weight regain when you're actually getting off the medication. And there's also side effects that are being reported, like being nauseous, stomach pain, or diarrhea. Another point is that they are pretty expensive. So the monthly cost is in the range of $1,200 at the moment. The hope is that this number will go down, to make it more accessible to an even wider range of the population. But that's a significant concern right now, that is the cost. What I also want to mention is, I'm not a medical doctor, I'm a food chemist, but it's important to note that, GLP-1 medications are not a solution for severely obese individuals where bariatric surgery may be required. So that could be a solution for those individuals. And also obesity, we need to recognize that it's a very complex condition. And it requires several intervention strategies or therapies. In addition to GLP-1, you need also dietary changes and exercise. And in any case, what's important is that if people are considering taking these medications, to always consult with their healthcare provider and the doctor. And another thing, while I was reading and educating myself on the subject matter, it dawned on me that, patients, GLP-1 patients, are really experiencing a dilemma because people who are taking these drugs, don't have an appetite, feel full for longer, which is the reason why these medications work. We talked about it. Why patients eat less and reduce their calorie intake. Yet these patients have to eat because you need to make sure that you have all the nutrients daily to support your physiological functions and ensure that you're feeling well. So the solution for this is really smaller portion sizes that are nutrient dense, that deliver against the needs of GLP-1 patients and still taste great. So that's, my comment from earlier, healthy or tailored to specific needs, dietary needs doesn't necessarily need to equate to poor taste. And going back to snacks, I think personally that snacks could be a really good vehicle to meet those needs of nutrient density and great taste.
These are great insights into the needs of GLP-1 patients. Thanks, Bernd. What can the food industry do to support GLP-1 patients?
Yeah, and there's a lot happening out there already. Since I started looking into this topic, that was sometime around end of summer last year. Since that time, where GLP-1 was lingering, but it was not really a big thing. But since then, a lot has been published. A lot of foods are popping up that are designed to meet the dietary needs of GLP-1 patients. And these foods are so-called companion foods. Companion foods because they have all the nutrients, especially protein, when it comes to muscle, maintaining muscle, as well as making sure that you basically replenish and regain muscle. At the same time, losing weight. So protein certainly plays an important role in this. But they also contain, high levels of fiber, which is important also for the digestive system. They contain fats, carbohydrates in the right ratios, along with vitamins and minerals. The challenge here again is when you pack a lot of these nutrients in a small volume of such foods, like snacks, is that they can have a negative impact on taste. And again, that's really our experts can come in and help and make these food taste good and appeal to these patients. Again, the challenge to overcome is the appetite, loss of appetite. People don't want to eat. They don't have pleasure or feel pleasure in eating. And that's important to overcome that barrier with food that is exactly designed, to cater against those patients' needs. And yeah, I showed the rice milk example earlier, which shows that, our flavors, dairy type flavors can reduce bitterness or off notes, enhance desired characterizing notes, and really help brands delivering, great tasting products for this significant new demographic and emerging demographic of GLP-1 patients. I also read about food that supports consumers or GLP-1 patients in a different way, and patients who want to lose weight through food that stimulates the secretion of the GLP-1 hormone in the body naturally. So it would not be an injection, it would not be a drug, it would be the GLP-1 hormone agonist that is being, or GLP-1 hormone that is being produced by the body in the lower intestine and stimulated by the foods that are designed in that way. So these foods are designed to slow digestion and deliver the nutrients in areas in the lower intestine where GLP-1 is produced and secreted by so-called L cells. So in order for these nutrients to arrive in the lower areas of the intestine, they need to be protected. And that can be accomplished by encapsulating the nutrients by adding viscous dietary fibers. So these are all ways to protect nutrients, make sure that they end up in the areas of the intestine where a GLP-1 is produced naturally. And another interesting mechanism, for everyone who's working a lot with starches, carbohydrates, is that resistant starch can actually also stimulate GLP-1 production naturally, but that is a different mechanism. It goes through your gut bacteria, where the resistant starch that again escapes digestions in the stomach ends up in the lower intestine area, and is converted by gut bacteria into a short-chain fatty acid that also trigger GLP-1.
We'll go ahead and ask, are there any final thoughts that you'd like to share? Bern, maybe you can start.
Yes, sure. So final thoughts. First of all the flavors that Emily mentioned, really mouth-watering. So I think I need to get some of those right away. In summary, what I think from a food science and consumer perspectives, when it comes to health trends and snacking, it's important to reiterate what really matters, and that's how the ingredients interact with the human body, understand that really, really thoroughly so that we can design food that meets the needs of these demographics. And secondly, taste is always king, how the food tastes. So again, can't mention it often enough. Healthy doesn't necessarily mean poor taste. We can deliver both. It's also important, I mentioned it, to ensure when you're making health claims in relation to the food that they're well substantiated, strong scientific evidence, typically well-controlled human intervention studies or clinical studies. And I would always encourage consumers really to consider the science behind the nutrition and functional claims and check the sources of the information. So are the underlying studies based on associations only, self-reported, or is there a clear cause and effect relationship established between consuming the food, its functional ingredients, and the health outcomes? And for me personally, as an R&D professional, it's really great to see that brands are responding to the health and wellness needs of the consumers, and there are some great options already out there to meet their needs, be it women's health, healthy aging, or GLP-1 supported weight management opportunities. And some food companies are a little more ahead than others, so they have invested in nutrition research for many years and sometimes even decades, and that is paying off now because these companies, have the data to support claims around, for example, GLP-1, and have invested into the research, the R in R&D, that gives them a head start. And again, they're now ahead of the game, to meet the needs of this demographic. So it's just good to see that it's not just the development work; it's also important to continue to invest in research for mid and long-term success. And with the help, of course, of trusted ingredient and flavor suppliers, if you're looking at CPG companies, these options are getting better and better, not only in terms of the functionalities, but also from a taste perspective. And that's where we come in and are available to help.
Yeah, and just to add on that as well, no, sorry, Bernd, is my sound okay? Is that better?
Yes.
Excellent.
No.
Yeah, so just to add to that, I know we've just spoken about it, but I think innovation in products is really, really important. So obviously you have the innovation on the side of the actual ingredients, but it's actually that product innovation that's something that's going to be key. And I think brands really need to be transparent as well. You're just touching on that, Bernd, about what these ingredients do, and consumers are educating themselves, but to kind of handle as well misinformation, because we all know out there, social media, TikTok, internet searches, there's a plethora of information that's out there, and some of it's may not be correct, and a lot of this influences consumers buying these products. So I think we as scientists and companies that have brands, that when we're using ingredients, that we are supporting transparency and educating consumers as well, because that plays a big part. And we've all seen as well, the healthy kind of foods as well that are out there that may not be so much when you kind of, if you know what your ingredients. And so yeah, that would be something for me, I think, is number one, when kind of targeting these kind of groups.
Thanks, Bernd and Emily. Let's go ahead and jump into some of the Q&A. Emily, there's a question here for you. You previously mentioned HFSS. Can you share a little bit more about what that stands for?
Yeah, for sure. So that is high fat, salt, and sugar. So that is, products that would have high fat or salt or sugar. So most companies are really looking now at kind of reducing those, whether they need to increase a salty perception, then we can help with that. We do have things that can help with sweetness perception as well. So traditionally snacks, as we talked about, were some of these higher fat, higher salt, higher sugar. There still will be. There's always room for those on the market. We all love our treats and our comfort food. That's not going away. But also there's that move towards having if you want to have the healthier option, that is there too. So there's a focus on that and looking at reformulations or developing new products that would be lower in those things. You can see this in the UK and Ireland as well. They have that traffic light system where you can kind of see by colour where you're lying in those. So you're red for low and red for green. Red for green, sorry, red for high. So yeah, so that's basically in a nutshell what that is.
Great, that's really helpful. Thanks, Emily. Mm-hmm. Can you share what are some products that suit themselves well for probiotics?
I can take that. Obviously, some ingredients naturally will have probiotics, especially when we're talking about dairy. And there's been a big rise in, flavored kind of kefir type drinks as well. Also, we've seen plant-based companies, that would have different plant-based bases, yogurts with added probiotics. We've actually done some work on these in the applications lab here. So we're definitely seeing that shift from, the naturally occurring probiotics to brands that are having products that are more plant-based being infused with these types of ingredients. You'd also see like little, yogurt bites that would be, have probiotics with them. So again, like that's that snackable type. So you could, just have a little pack around with you, pop them in, you're getting your probiotics as well as you go along. Beverages, water. I know that's not exactly a snack, but they're infusing just regular water with these types of ingredients, minerals, vitamins, probiotics. And as well, I suppose, slightly off the snack, but these kind of, fizzy drinks or healthy fizzy drinks. So you see a lot of these on the market as well that are incorporating probiotics into them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, to your point of talking about water, there's one question here that asks, how does GLP-1 drug affect hydration? And do we know anything about how potentially alcohol might also affect?
Okay, yeah, so interesting question. So a question that I have to be honest, I can't answer because I'm not, haven't been involved in any clinical studies, but I read about some of the data and the outputs of clinical studies in patients. So what I would recommend is to really go to some reputable medical websites to really educate yourself on those, more technical questions, more specific to GLP-1 and clinical outcomes. So I've actually, summarized the ones that I've been using that I found trustworthy. And these are the Cleveland Clinic, Columbia University, Harvard University, and Mayo Clinic. So these are the 4 that I found really, really unbiased, with good scientific data to educate yourself and dive a little deeper. And again, my apologies, I can't respond to the questions. I'm not the expert in that area, but I know who the experts are. So at least I can point you in that direction. And I'm happy to share these websites, links to these websites of these medical institutions after the webinar.
Great. So we'll go ahead and follow up on that one. Thank you. We have a great question here about our sweet brown portfolio. Can you tell us more about how your sweet brown flavors apply to these top trends?
I actually was only talking about this today, funnily enough, with a colleague. So, for me, I was like really thinking about, like popcorn. Obviously, that's a snack with fiber, and people, you get your regular, your salted, maybe your sweet. But I think we're seeing a lot more in some of these sweet brown flavors, really kind of amping up these types of products too. So having something that's still like low in sugar and fat, but also having an indulgent profile, so you can have a kind of healthier snack. I think as well in those kind of like lower calorie ice creams or dessert profiled yogurt pots, things like that, those really lean into those sweet brown flavors. So like your chocolates, your caramels. Again, I know I mentioned creme brulee, excuse me. But yeah, for me, I think it's like a lot of innovation in that snack side of things. And they can add mouthfeel, they can add depth. They can really kind of enhance a product that maybe has been reduced in some of these types of ingredients that would have been more indulgent per se.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm seeing more sweet brown flavors in like traditional chips and in seasonings too. It's
Yeah,
really evolving.
delicious.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And another question here. What are some other ways manufacturers can make products more appealing to those taking GLP-1 medications? And or what do you think will be next trend in snacks to appeal to these patients?
Yeah, I think it needs to start, as I mentioned, with understanding what these consumers, GLP-1 patients, are experiencing, right? And they are experiencing loss of appetite, less desire to eat. And there's actually a recent study that shows that even the taste perception, taste receptors of all 5 basic tastes are suppressed. So the exact mechanism is not known yet, but these consumers, these patients go through a lot, and understanding their needs, understanding the challenges to overcome to support them on their journey is critically important. So when I look at these questions, to me, it's about putting the fun back into the food, so make it more appealing. Food that is designed against the needs of this demographic, and that can be like, of course, a great taste, better taste, even more interesting flavor profiles. I think, Emily, you mentioned a lot today, sweet brown flavors, but not only those, but there's also other, I call them perfect pairings. So when flavor addition does make sense because it's complementary. It's basically latching on the profile or complementing the profiles from different foods. And what you can also consider, new product shapes, perhaps new product design. That I always find it very interesting if there's like different areas of the food that have different properties, like a liquid filling that contains maybe some actives, in a shell that delivers maybe some crispiness. These kind of foods, I think, would resonate, with demographic and with others as well. So it's not only about GLP-1 patients, but it's really about consumers in general. How do we excite them? And GLP-1 patients are just a specific demographic that needs companion food, nutrient-dense food that comes with its own challenges that need to be overcome. But these are the thoughts that I had when I listened to this question.
And just to add to that, Bernd, as well, it's just something that my brother had said to me. Like, he gets a lot of his calories from milk, he said, because he loves coffee and he drinks a big thing of coffee every day. He gets a lot of his calories from milk. So I was thinking, there's coffee that has, added protein added, or there's people love flavored coffees that they get from, some of these big giants or whatever. So you could look at maybe like flavoring coffee beans and different things like that as well for, an interesting aspect for these types of patients. And maybe that's the way as well for these types of patients that are taking these medications. Maybe it's going down the line of very basic, food kind of formats, but are flavored more like foods, maybe even. I don't know. But that's just something that kind of comes to mind.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you both. Another good question. What are some different ways you can mask collagen?
I wouldn't say necessarily, I'm going to say off the top of my head, we can mask it with whichever maskers we have, because things can be quite specific. So we have masks, lots of different different proteins, or different marine collagen, or is it collagen from animal source, or is it, is it synthesized collagen? There's so many different options. So what I would always say, if people are looking at specific types of ingredients, that they would send those to us and they can collaborate. So we do a lot of work in-house here with people's ingredients, if they'll send them to us, or working hand in hand with them too, working in a really collaborative way. And there's not like a one flavor fits all of the time. Of course, there are some that work really well in a broad range of applications or food categories, but I don't want to say just off the cuff there's one exact thing that's going to work. So yeah, if somebody had something with collagen and they'd like to help with that, we would be more than happy to help.
Great, thanks, Emily. And another question here, Bernd, you mentioned there are products out there in the market that are great for human health. Can you provide some examples?
Yes, so when you look at the current market, like there's companion foods and there's brands or products popping up in retail. Like Nestle has come out with the Vital Pursuit range, microwavable food that is very convenient, nutrient dense, that is tailored against GLP-1 patients. Then there's like a Supergut, Daily Harvest, products out there. So that's products examples that I've seen. But there's of course many more out there. So I would encourage you to do a bit of research. But these were the ones that I recall when I looked at the current market and products that are out there, but not only retail but also food service. So Smoothie King, food service chain, has actually come out with smoothies that are tailored to GLP-1 patients, and they're also marketed in that way, which is very interesting. And these are companion foods, but then the other class of foods that is stimulating the natural production of GLP-1. There's actually, again, Nestle came out with a drink, which is called Boost. So you might want to look that one up. Very interesting, based on scientific data, clinical studies. They found that when you consume this drink 10 to 30 minutes before a meal, it helps to stimulate the natural production of GLP-1. Again, when you look at the ingredient line, it's interesting. It's whey protein. I would assume there's some kind of encapsulation that allows the whey protein to get to the lower parts of the intestine and trigger the secretion of GLP-1 hormone. And that's another interesting product out there. But I haven't really dug probably deep enough to find more, but I would, these are just some examples to answer that question.
Thank you, Bernd. And we'll go ahead and answer one or two more questions here. The next one is, what are nootropic properties? Can you share more about nootropics?
Yeah, so the adaptogens and nootropics are two different types of ingredients, and the nootropics are ones really that are looking at kind of different ways that they stimulate the mind and the body. So, you have different ones that can be, stress relief or energy boosting. It really depends on what you're trying to achieve. And there's lots of different ingredients that have these properties. Like I mentioned, you have your mushrooms. So people are looking at things like lion's mane, reishi. There's also, the ashwagandha as well, those different types of ingredients. So basically, and a lot of them are used together, and you'll see those in beverages, people looking at as well, kind of replacements for alcohol. People are looking at like kind of this, the sober curious movement, and looking at incorporating some of these ingredients into those types of products as well, so that some people are looking for like maybe get like a little bit of like a buzzy energy and for socializing, but not wanting to, drink alcohol. We just tasted some chocolate today in the lab as well that incorporated like fennel seeds and cherry, and like some of these would have natural properties as well. So people are really looking at superfood ingredients, and blending those in ways that are going to give you effects on your mind and your body.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
There's an easy way to remember that. Adaptogens, like the word says, you adapt to a situation like external stress, like you want to cope with it. So to ease the effect of stress, now using those kinds of food products with those ingredients. And nootropics, as you said, Emily, is like to stimulate the cognitive function and performance.
Perfect. Well, that's all we have time for today. We appreciate everyone joining and invite you to download the slides and infograph for more information. Thank you, Bernd and Emily, and all of you for joining us today.